encapsulated into that period of time, and other people like it spread out. And I guess that's fine. It's all good. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting. I totally know what you mean, because I'm the person who always thought the Santa Claus parade was kind of strange that it happens in November here.
right,
So, because I've always thought, even December 1, I feel, is a marker where things move over. I guess
right.
there's a couple of markers, Some people,
Yeah,
the stores, it's definitely November 1 or earlier. A lot of people are after Remembrance Day. A lot of people are December 1. So, and making the record has definitely made us aware of this in a way that obviously you wouldn't probably think about if you weren't forced to. And we have been, because now that we're making a record, I mean, the timelines of making a record are like, you have to order your CDs this many weeks before, and then you want to get it to, radio stations or to people who ordered the record by a particular date, which means you have to add a few more weeks. So it is kind of funny that, on the one hand, it's easy to kind of go like, oh yeah, it shouldn't start till this date. But on the other, you're like, wow, yeah, your brain really has to be calibrated to be almost thinking about some of those things in September to make sure that they're available by mid-November, December. So it's definitely something it's been a learning experience for us with having put out a seasonal record now.
yeah, yeah. I guess that's kind of how I operate every week now with the column for the paper. It's all because it's so far in advance because of the deadlines. I'm sending the column now, but it won't be for Wednesday's paper. It'll be for next Wednesday's. And in order to make that happen, I had to do the interview last week. So you know what I mean? It's always
Living in the
thinking
future.
ahead.
That's it.
The advantage for me is I look at the thing and go, oh my gosh, it's only November 5th, because I'm feeling like it's November 30th because I'm talking to you for a podcast that will go online November 30th, right? So it's a
Exactly.
little bonus. Like, oh,
Exactly.
it's not even close to Christmas yet. But
We have that
I'm
same
a
experience.
December 1st marker. So December 1st, Usually I start with music. It always starts with music for me, like live music. Start going to the Christmas shows or Christmas concerts and different things like that. And that usually starts in December. So you've backed me up because you're coming to Lewisport at the end of November.
That's right. I'd like just a couple of days though. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll be fine. I'll just take December 1st off and make up for it. But
There you go.
I did want to ask now, talking about Christmas in November, which is not hardly so bad because some people will appreciate it. Do you have a favorite Christmas story or a best gift you ever got for Christmas or anything like that you could share?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Well, let's see. I mean, I always had such great Christmases growing up. I'm an only child. My mom and dad and I are really close, and it's funny. I don't, looking back, I don't remember ever like wanting for anything at Christmas. My parents, it was never like gifts overflowing everywhere because I was just not raised that way. But the things that I really wanted, and my parents had that way of telling, like, okay, he really wants a Nintendo. He said he wanted these other things, but he really wants the Nintendo. They're always so good at like knowing the thing that was of real interest to me when you're just a little kid scribbling the list of Santa. So I do remember, and I'm just obviously super young, but getting that very first Nintendo and playing like Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt on it, and just feeling like I was in the future, which is so funny to look back on now, considering like even the way video games are now, it literally looks like you'd be watching a movie, instead of playing a game. And that, in my lifetime, it was just like looking back on Mario as like, this is the cutting edge of everything that's happening. So I suppose that would be like probably that will be a Christmas memory.
Getting well, that was a big deal. I mean, I remember I didn't have, my brother had the system, and it was, we were on Change Islands where, years before internet or anything and he had this game that you could play, and you didn't have to go to the hangout and play a game. You could play it at home, and that was kind of super cool. And like you said, you're living in the future.
It was huge. I walked through the mall the other day, and of course the arcade is closed. It's been closed for a little bit now, and I guess it just makes total sense. I mean, everybody has the games on their phones now, and they're now visually the same quality or better than some of the games that that are in the arcade, and that just, again, that those little markers that for all of us that happen where you're like, wow, how could that have, you would never have believed that would have been possible even 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And now it's where we are.
It is. And I guess, we all look at what kids are doing today and they're playing video games and, and we wonder, are they having as good a childhood and is everything okay? But then we look back a little bit, we kind of had the same stuff. It just wasn't, the quality wasn't there. We had a lot of the same things.
I think you're right. And I mean, games have gotten really social now. There's a lot of that sort of online playing where you are actually playing with real people. So I don't know. I'm always hesitant to like, I totally am aware of that, like I what you're saying is totally true. There's always that antisocial element that I feel we're all more conscious of than ever now with social media. The sort of antisocial media side of things comes out. But yeah, I wonder if I don't think it's as bad. I think like everything, it's probably somewhere in the middle, it's, there might be some negative things. There's some positive things too.
Yeah. And you can't just take it in isolation, right? There's other things going on around. The video game thing is just one piece of all the stuff that's going on around. I mean, our lives have changed. I mean, parents are working more, people are working longer hours, and things are just, schools changed. I don't know. I think we'll all be okay in the long run.
We'll make it. Hopefully,
we'll make it. I think we'll make it in some fashion. But anyway, yeah, there we go. Told you that this could veer off into some odd directions.
Oh, I love it. I'll talk about video games with the rest of it if you want me to.
I want to talk let's get away from your Christmas album just for a minute, because I wanted to ask you, now for everybody listening, I mean, you're a songwriter. Some people may not know, but you're also a filmmaker. And when I think of what you do, I think of you mostly as a storyteller. Where did this all come from? Where did it all start? How did you fall into this creative life?
Like right back at the beginning kind of thing?
Right back at the beginning, way back. We probably did this interview backwards, but that's okay.
No, that's totally fine. Well, I've often told people that, I used to go into the Radio Shack in the Avalon Mall and play all the keyboards until they told me to stop. And my parents took that as a sign. And one of those Christmases, even still link it back, they got me a digital keyboard and a little book that had, the notes, but with the note names inside the notes. And you had the stickies that you could stick on the piano. You just refer to a manual and figure out how to like label all the notes, the right letters. And I basically learned the melodies to a couple of Beatles songs that were in that book that first day, like Christmas Day. I was just so mystified and enamored with the piano and how it worked and how music worked. And I knew nothing, obviously, but I just followed this little easy guide to learn a couple of basic single note melodies. And my parents took that as a sign and got me in lessons. And I guess I was about 10 years old then. And so I took piano for, I think about a decade, and started guitar somewhere in there as well, and did some vocal lessons somewhere in there as well. And, flash forward to post-English degree. I graduated and was sort of at that point where I was going to go into journalism, funny enough, actually. That was what I was thinking about in my final year. But I was at that stage of like, well, now would be the time you apply to journalism school, and I had done a bunch of freelance stuff. I was the arts editor at the Muse back in the day for the Memorial University newspaper. I did some freelance and it was all on track for that. And I just realized, because I guess I took a really hard look at my life then, which was smart looking back. I mean, it's so funny. I was like, wow, I was smart enough to do this at I guess 20 or 21, but just realized that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. It felt like I was sort of doing the fallback plan or something, which, I mean, I've have so many journalist friends now. I mean, journalism is in no way a fallback plan. It's a passion, and it's probably as challenging a business to work in as being a musician, to be honest with you. But for me, it just wasn't the right side of things. Everything I realized, everything I was doing in my journalism world, I would always just try to gear to music because I just wanted to be around music. And then even in the English degree, everything I wanted to do, like if I could write a paper and somehow make it about music, even though I was doing an English degree and reading books and writing about that, I would do that. And so I just saw the common thread and realized I should make a go of it, or try to. And literally just started going to open mics and, trying to figure out how you play a show. And it was definitely coming in at the absolute ground floor of everything. Like there was no uncle who was a musician who could give me an opening slot, or like it was completely, I was trying to convince friends who wanted to go to dance clubs to go to acoustic shows. Like it was just my whole world did not in any way look like music other than my love of it. And I just had to try to figure out how to insert myself in it and learn how to do it that way. And that's sort of, that's sort of where it all began, I guess, in terms of playing music and then learning how to play it publicly.
And storytelling would have been a part, whether you had gone journalism or music, either way. Just you took the musical route. Yeah. It's really interesting because you totally made a conscious decision to follow the not so sensible path. Like if you're looking at it objectively, journalism has a certain, you go in, you get a degree and you get a job and you sort of has a path to it. Music is a little more random, I think, in any of the arts. It's a little, you get all the education but you still have to get out there. You have to do the work. You have to go on tour. You have to do all of that stuff. And then even after doing all that, there's no guarantees, that you'll have a regular income. And a lot of people struggle with the arts. So it seems like a brave move. Do you feel like that sometimes? Like that was a brave move?
I don't know. I don't necessarily think I did feel like that, which is kind of funny to say, because people would say that to me about going on tour. Like the very first tours I ever booked, I'm like, I'd like to go on tour, and I just started, contacting people through MySpace, I think was what was actually happening at that point in the world. And figuring out other musicians who played in those towns, listen to their music, see if I liked it and see if it was, similar in some way to what I do. And I'd send them a link and say, here's my songs, and if they liked it, then we'd kind of pair up and go, maybe we could do a show together. And, logically speaking, if you came to St. John's and you talked to me and you were an original acoustic artist, I'd probably say, I don't know, let's go to the Ship, or somewhere like that. Right. And of course, that's the same for every artist in every town. So, literally they'd be like, well, we should go play it wasn't the Carlton back then, but whatever the venue was in Halifax back in the early 2000s, Ginger's Tavern, I think was the place, and so we'd go do a show, and it was so matter of fact and just felt like following the steps, like the logical steps. And suddenly, like, I'm going to Nova Scotia to play a bunch of shows in a bunch of places. And I just remember people talking to me at the time being like, wow, you're so brave. You're going on tour. And I suppose it is, I don't know, but like, to me, it just seemed like what I was supposed to do and what I really had to do. And so I never really looked at it as, I didn't really associate some element of, I don't know, some virtue or something like that with it. It just seemed like the thing to do, and looking back now, I mean, it's not like I'm an old man, but we're talking about like 15 years ago, I guess. Like looking over the course of 15 years, I think about the number of friends of mine who have gone into, any profession, and it's never been a straight line for anybody. I mean, more now than ever, I think that no one really walks into any building to work and then walks out 30 years later retired with a pension. It doesn't seem to happen that way. Most of my friends who went into what I guess would be considered reliable professions that way have changed jobs 2 or 3 times, or been laid off or something happened or whatever. And it's never them. It's always like the economy or the whatever. So looking back, I'm like, well, I guess it wasn't, a horrible decision anyway.
No, I think that's something that, and when I said it, you're looking at the 2 paths to go. It really was only in that people believe that one is a more, has more promise, has more guarantees than the other, but really none of it has any guarantees. It's just what we've been sold. We've been told you should go down this one, get the job and 40 hours a week and get the pension and do that, but it's not even real. I mean, if you look at journalism, there are so many changes. I worked in media for a lot of years, and I've watched it evolve over, and I don't know if evolve is the right word, but change, and people that I know that were working in media aren't working there anymore because just can't find the work. You just don't have as many journalists as you used to have. And so they've gone into other fields and they're happy, and maybe